So box office numbers get talked about a lot when it comes to movies, and honestly, sometimes the discourse around them is fair, but buried underneath all the opening weekend headlines and the flop or not discourse, there are some genuinely great films that got written off way too fast. Movies that deserved a much longer conversation than they got. And today, I want to fix that. I've got 6 movies on this list that I love recommending, including a medieval drama that uses 3 perspectives to say something genuinely modern and unsettling, a World War II action film so entertaining it almost feels illegal, and a crime thriller that is, without exaggeration, one of the most quietly devastating things I've watched in years. And as always, stream availability for everything on this list is pinned in the first comment below. Go check that out. Let's get into it. So first up, I want to talk about a Ridley Scott film from 2021 that most people either skipped entirely or dismissed before giving it a real chance. And that genuinely frustrates me because this movie is something special. On the surface, it looks like a prestige medieval epic. Gorgeous costumes, 14th century France, a cast that has absolutely no business being this good together. And it is all of those things. But what makes it completely different from anything else in that space is the structure. The same story told 3 times from 3 different perspectives. And here's the thing. Every single version is convincing. You're watching the first chapter thinking you understand exactly what's happening. Then the second chapter starts and you're already revising. By the third, the film is doing something that feels less like historical drama and more like a very pointed, very uncomfortable conversation about whose version of events we choose to believe.
One of us has lied. Let us let God decide.
Jodie Comer is extraordinary in this, the kind of performance that should have been talked about for months and somehow wasn't. Matt Damon and Adam Driver are both doing excellent work, but she is the center of gravity that the whole film orbits around. It bombed theatrically, partially COVID timing, partially a marketing campaign that did it no favors. And that's a shame because this is the kind of film that film students are going to be picking apart for the next 30 years, while the rest of us sit here quietly embarrassed we slept on it. Smart, precise, and genuinely unsettling in ways you won't see coming. The movie's called The Last Duel, and it deserves a much bigger audience than it got.
We a big company. Million.
Now this next one, I love recommending this one because it's the kind of film where people assume they already know what it is and then they actually watch it and they come back completely converted. Disaster movies have a reputation. Big explosions, thin characters, dramatic music, someone running in slow motion. Most of them are perfectly fine, some of them are great. But occasionally, one comes along that takes the formula and actually grounds it in something real, and the result is a completely different experience. This film is based on the 2010 Gulf of Mexico oil rig disaster, the worst ecological incident in US history. And the first half of the movie is a slow, technical build that I know sounds like a warning sign, but stay with it because it's doing exactly what it needs to do. It's making you understand the machine before it breaks. And when it breaks, genuinely, the screen catches fire.
Are you seeing this?
The sound design alone is an experience. Water, mud, oil, flames, everything compounding on everything else. It is relentless in a way that feels earned rather than manufactured. Kurt Russell is excellent. Mark Wahlberg is more grounded here than in pretty much anything else he's done. And the whole thing carries this weight that comes from knowing it actually happened. Real people, real disaster. Does it have narrative ambitions beyond the immediate crisis? Not really, and you can feel that gap. But as a piece of technical filmmaking about a real catastrophe, it is far better than it ever got credit for. The movie is called Deepwater Horizon. If you've been putting it off, stop putting it off. All right, this next one. I want to be careful about how I frame this one because I think the way it was marketed when it came out did it real damage. This is a World War II spy thriller with 2 impossibly watchable leads, a gorgeous period setting, and the kind of old Hollywood craft that most modern films don't even attempt. Director Robert Zemeckis, the man behind some of the most technically accomplished films of the last 40 years, is operating at a very high level here, and the film looks and feels like something from a different era of filmmaking in the best possible way. But here's what the trailers didn't really communicate. The second half of this film is a slow psychological unraveling that Hitchcock would have been completely comfortable with. There's a central tension that settles over everything like a fog, and it never lifts. You're watching the lead actor's face doing the same math you're doing, and neither of you can land on a definitive answer, and it is genuinely maddening in the most satisfying way.
We suspect your wife is a German spy.
It's insane. If you are right.
Marion Cotillard is doing something remarkable here. Every scene she's in, you're watching her the way the main character watches her, searching for something, uncertain of everything. She gives you just enough and never more than that. It's a masterclass in withholding. This film got buried under tabloid noise at the time of release, and that is honestly one of the more frustrating things to have happened to a genuinely good movie in recent years. Elegant, tense, and more emotionally affecting than you'll expect. The movie's called Allied. Really worth your time. Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying these recommendations and you want more of this kind of thing, hit that subscribe button and leave a like on the video. I put these lists out regularly, so you've always got something good in the queue. Really do appreciate the support. Okay, back to the list.
The whole operation hinges on you getting closer with him. Oh, now you know this.
Now this next one, this is one I get genuinely passionate recommending because I think it's one of the most underseen crime films of the last several years, and I say that with full awareness of how many underseen crime films exist. This is an Australian film that premiered at Cannes and then got dropped onto Netflix with almost no promotion, which is one of the great streaming era crimes as far as I'm concerned. It's based on a real undercover operation, a large-scale sting designed to get a suspected child killer to incriminate himself. That's the setup. And the film takes that setup and turns it into something genuinely haunting. Sean Harris plays the suspect, and I want to be precise about this. It is one of the most unsettling screen performances I have seen in a long time. Half-whispered dialogue, a physical stillness that never reads as calm, a presence that makes every single scene feel like standing too close to an edge. Joel Edgerton plays the undercover officer working his way into this man's trust, and what the film does brilliantly is show you the psychological cost of that. What it does to someone to spend that much time that close to something that dark. The editing is disorienting in a purposeful way. The score is deeply uncomfortable, and the whole thing has this atmosphere of dread that builds so gradually you almost don't notice it until you're completely submerged in it. Netflix buried it. The world mostly moved on. That's a shame, because this film deserves a real audience. The movie is called The Stranger. Please watch it. Okay, now this one's a little different from everything else on the list, because this is not a film trying to say something profound. It knows exactly what it is, and it is enormously entertaining because of that. This is a 2024 Guy Ritchie film based on declassified documents about a real World War II covert operation, and it plays less like a war film and more like a heist film crossed with a caper. Sharp, slick, genuinely funny, and moving with so much confidence and momentum that you just get swept along with it. The tone sits somewhere between The Dirty Dozen and Inglourious Basterds, and if that combination sounds appealing to you, this film absolutely delivers on that promise. The ensemble cast is electric, everyone is clearly having a tremendous amount of fun, and that energy is completely contagious. There's a lightness to it that doesn't undercut the stakes, it just makes the whole thing feel alive in a way that a lot of action films don't manage.
It's very good.
Ritchie is in his element here, doing what he does better than almost anyone, making stylish, kinetic, crowd-pleasing entertainment that has just enough wit in the script to keep it from feeling disposable. It came and went in theaters incredibly quickly. The conversation around it lasted maybe 2 weeks and then disappeared, which is baffling because this is exactly the kind of film people keep saying they want more of. Fun, well-made, based on a true story that is genuinely stranger than fiction. Pure momentum wrapped in a World War II setting. The movie is called The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Easy Friday night watch.
Your family, your home, how much do you need?
231.
And my top pick, and I mean this seriously when I say it, is one of the most purely entertaining action films I've watched in recent years, and almost nobody talks about it. The premise is almost insultingly simple. Two brothers rob a bank. The high school's wrong, they hijack an ambulance. That's it. That's the movie. And Michael Bay, yes, that Michael Bay, takes that premise and makes something that is so committed, so relentlessly kinetic, and so genuinely well crafted within its own lane that I find it impossible not to respect. The drone cinematography in this film is unlike anything I've seen in a mainstream action movie. Bay had a budget that was small by his standards and clearly used that constraint creatively.
The whole thing feels like someone who has been making massive studio films for decades finally just let himself play. And the result is manic and inventive in ways his bigger films rarely are.
Don't shoot a cop!
Jake Gyllenhaal is operating at a frequency here that I can only describe as fully committed chaos. Not in a grounded, dramatic way, in a I have made very deliberate choices about this character and I will not be apologizing for any of them way. And it works. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is the emotional core of the film, and he holds the whole thing together while everything around him is on fire, sometimes literally. It got mixed reviews, underperformed commercially, and got dismissed pretty quickly as loud and empty. And yes, it is loud, but there is real craft underneath that loudness, and the two things are not mutually exclusive. If you want a great time on a Friday night and you haven't seen this yet, the answer is simple. The movie is called Ambulance. Check it out. Alright, that's the list. Now before you go, our next video is one you are genuinely not going to want to skip. We're getting into 6 R-rated thrillers that are doing something far more interesting beneath the surface than you'd expect. These are the thrillers that stick, the ones that make you think, make you recommend them, and make you want to go back and watch them again. That video is up now. Click it when you're done here. Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this, subscribe, leave a like, share it with whoever in your life needs a good movie recommendation. I'll keep making these as long as you keep watching them. See you in the next one.